If you would, please, let's come to order. We'll call the meeting to order. We know that we have a number of folks that'll be down in the House chambers for the swearing in for the new member that'll be sworn in the House today, and wish we could all be there, but we need to go ahead and do a few things here. So as soon as Representative Powell gets through, we'll get started right here and go ahead. I'm going to ask Chairman Knight if he would open us with a word of prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we'll bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today humbled and grateful for the gifts that you've given us, for the opportunity to lead in Georgia. Please be with us today. Give us wisdom. Give us patience as we get into times that are sometimes filled with tension. Guide us and lead us. We ask that you get us through these next couple of days and that it may be pleasing unto you. In thy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Before we get into our agenda this morning, we've got some special guests in the room. We want to ask Chairman Jaspers to recognize them for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I have my son-in-law here, Justin, if you'll stand up. Justin's a city councilman in Centerville, and father of my lovely granddaughter, Harper, and and Elizabeth, who's at high school right now teaching, is she not? Thank you for being here, Justin.
Glad to have you with us. Chairman Knight has someone he would like to recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a special guest with me. Noxie Burson is going to shadow me today. Stand up, Noxie. She is, her parents are good friends, and she's going to come up and learn a little bit about how we do things up here. So welcome, Noxie.
Great, glad to have you. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Representative, what have you got over there this morning, Debbie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am not on any list yet, but I was advised to go ahead and present this. It's Senate Bill 496, and it has been changed in committee yesterday to include House Bill 1116, House Bill 1134, and House Bill 97. And this is a historic tax credit bill, and what each of those things do is change the way. Go ahead.
Let me hold you up there just a second, okay, if you would. Ladies and gentlemen, if it came out Monday, it's on the yellow sheet and it would be in your book. If it came out after that, it's not in there, and we don't have a copy of that yet. So if you would you mind?
Come back.
Let's do it tomorrow, and then they should have copies of those, and they'll be able to follow along with you, please.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Thank you to the chair, to the committee. Today I present to you House Resolution 1416. The resolution focuses on felony sentencing and punishment. All the committee will do is review Supreme Court rulings for updates to our codes, and also address some updates to our code based on feedback from pardons and paroles, and at least one other state agency who has reached out to me on the topic of sentencing and punishment. Because of the subject matter and countless organizations and fellow legislators who want to be involved and have demonstrated their interest in working through this, the goal is to construct a bill or bills in a bipartisan manner that all of us can be proud of and support. And with that, Mr. Chair, that's the resolution, and I appreciate your favor and consideration. Great,
thank you very much. I don't see any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Avatardi, come on up, please, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. I have a Senate Bill 32, Alyssa's Law. It's a school security bill, basically integrating technology into our schools. I've got 3 on here, but I'll stop and just turn it back to you if you have any questions.
Don't see any questions. What's your next one, sir?
I have Senate Bill 112, a Workforce Acceleration Act, basically creating pilot programs around the state, basically for adult learners to get their high school diploma.
Okay, don't see any questions.
And then on page 2, I have Senate Bill 351, the Protecting Georgia's Children on Social Media Act of 24. Basically, this is an update to the cyberbullying statute creating commercial reasonably ways for parental consent for those under 16, and then we slightly upgraded this bill with some language from Representative Jaspers in terms of his House Bill 910. So this is a great piece of legislation.
Okay, we do have a question. Whip Park has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Senate Bill 351, if I recall, there were some lines that would permit the state to withhold funding from schools that did not comply. Are those provisions still in there?
Do you know what lines you're referring
I
to?
think it's close to around line 100. My internet's slow down here, so I'm not able to pull up the bill.
Oh, you're okay. I got the bill in front of me. Let me look.
Thank you. It's toward the end. And along those lines, for some of our rural school districts in which they may not necessarily have the best access to rural to internet access as well, I think overall I appreciate the policy, but just want to ensure that there are no negative implications. One, in terms of any withholding of state funds, and then two, for some of the schools who may not be able to comply.
I don't see that on line 100. Do you know where specifically?
1 second.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm speaking to what you're asking about.
It's in the packet.
Yeah,
It's on the desk. Is there a sub? Yes.
yeah, there's a sub. It should be on your desk.
351.
I mean, basically in general, I don't want to take up the committee's time, but basically in general, there are enforcement provisions in the bill in terms of schools that don't comply. I mean, basically they're going to be following model policy that's created by the Department of Education. And just for the record, I know there are several school districts around the state that already have some pretty intense filters in terms of what students can access. I know in my daughter's middle school, they don't even let personal devices in the door, and that's a public school. So this isn't really too much of a change. I think this is just creating some uniformity to protect kids in the classroom, and also helping teachers who have a lot of distracted kids on devices during learning time.
I agree, again, as to the purpose of the policy, but it's lines 172 to, I believe, lines 181, in which the State Board of Education would be authorized to take corrective action, including but not limited to withholding a portion of state funding.
Yep.
Chairman Jasper, you have a comment?
Yes, sir. I just want to thank the senator for allowing me to attach my House Bill 910 to it. It passed out of the Senate Judiciary unanimously, and knowing that we're getting down to the last days, I thank you for letting me attach that.
Oh, and anytime we can help a House member take a ride, we'll do it. So,
Yeah.
as long as it's good.
Okay, thanks, sir. Don't see any
Thank
other
you all.
questions. Thank you.
Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. Senator Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on the blue sheet, SB 64. That is a piece of legislation that gives every adopted Georgian the same rights as those of us who were blessed enough to grow up in our biological family, access to their birth certificate once they turn the age of 18. SB 437 is a piece of legislation that working with the Department of Agriculture on. We have a lot of unlicensed, unregulated hemp products being sold to our youth through convenience stores and others. This right here would bring everybody into compliance as far as age and third-party testing of the content of those products that are being consumed here in Georgia. And SB 517 deals with criminal prosecutions of law enforcement officers. Post-indictment allows for pretrial requests per the defense on cases where officers used force during a legal arrest. And I would greatly appreciate consideration of the House Rules Committee on those three pieces of legislation, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we do have a question. Shirley Dempsey.
Senator Robertson, I missed your last number. What was the last number about illegal arrest?
517, it's a legal arrest. What this would allow is the defense to make pretrial motions under Title 16 and 17 related to use of force, which are currently prohibited.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no other questions.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Walker.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. On page 2, I have 2 bills related to occupational licensing. I spoke to these previously, Mr. Chairman, but Senate Bill 373 will make it easier for marriage and family therapists that have a valid license in another state to get a license in Georgia. And we also added a House measure to do some cleanup and clarification on licensed professional counselors to this bill. And then
I don't see any questions. Did you have another one also?
So Senate Bill 374 was brought to me by the professional land surveyors, and it streamlines their licensing process to hopefully be able to attract more people into the industry. And then we added some soil classifier language too to kind of do the same thing for them.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just to remind you, if you've been once and asked for it, it's not necessary.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I come to you with H.R. 1135, 4 down from the top of the first page under modified open rule. This is a study committee to assess the impact of electronic transaction costs to Georgia merchants and consumers, with a specific focus on determining whether the merchant discount fee should be imposed on the state tax portion of the sale.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The top of page 2, Senate Bill 157. This is a bill that overhauls how we deal with criminal records when it comes to those applying for occupational licensing, and it creates due process, consistency in the process, and also it makes certain that those that have been part of our criminal justice system have a path forward to become part of our workforce, become productive members of society instead. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Senator Hickman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. 2 quick bills. Both of these are workforce development bills. One is Senate Bill 384, and it's creating Georgia as a model employer for people with disabilities. We have, the governor's office has reached out to us on this bill, Mr. Chairman, and there's going to be a small modification that governor's office wants to make on it, and we're very acceptable to it. Then also, Senate Bill 497 is expanding apprenticeship by the TCSG. The big part of that bill is that these apprenticeships now will also apply to city and county governments. So.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Don't see any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Were there any members who had any requests? Dean Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to bring to you the substitute to Senate Bill 212. And it's on your desk there. The Speaker Pro Tem and the Majority Leader and Chairwoman Ballinger and Whip Park had some questions about some of this, and it's been, we didn't bring it up yesterday, about the need for the legislature to still be involved if we pass this particular piece of legislation.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take that up in just a moment. Are there any other requests other than the substitutes that are on your desk? And Chair Lady Smith, we're going to go ahead and put your name by all these that you're for these, and we'll go ahead and make that notation.
Parliamentary inquiry?
Yes, ma'am.
Does that make me the senior bill approval?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. No other requests? Okay. Now, what we're going to do, you should have on your desk there some rule substitutes. And we'll take these and we're going to ask for approval. Senate Bill 212, Representative Green just talked about, LC 473067S. What's your pleasure?
Move.
You have a move and seconds. Any opposition? All right, it's approved. Next, we have Senate Bill 324, Representative Bruce Williamson, LC 481311S.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring before you this amendment, LC number you just read. It deals with victims of domestic violence, address confidentiality. It came out of the Senate unanimously at the request of the governor's office and the House sponsor, Vice Chairman Houston Gaines. It was simply wanted to add on line 262 the word subject to appropriations of the General Assembly.
Okay, you've heard that explanation. Now what's the pleasure of the committee?
Move.
Have a move and seconds. Any opposition? It's approved. All right, we have Senate Bill 374, Chairman Jaspers. It's LC 365871S. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring before the committee a substitute and what we're doing for Senator Walker's bill. This is the one we heard yesterday on land surveyors, is doing as he requested, and the request of the Land Surveyors Association and Engineers Association is removing lines 96 and 97 that were added in committee, and that's the only change to the bill. And there's been a good promise from both organizations to work on this issue this summer and fall.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move.
Have a move and seconds. Any opposition? It's approved. And the last one we have is Senate Bill 351. Pro Tem Jones has it, LC 491920S.
Yes, sir. This includes the original underlying bill. Yes, and it also was added a bill that we passed overwhelmingly last year, but was not taken up by the Senate, to require local school boards to have filtering devices on student-issued devices. The State Board of Education would come up with rules and regs and provide a list of acceptable filtering that school systems could choose from among, unless they already had a platform that was stronger than what the school board recommends.
Okay, you've heard that explanation. Have a question? Representative Hughley has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Madam Pro Tem, who will pay for these filtering devices? Will the locals pay, or are we going to appropriate the funds for that?
They almost all have them now, but some of them are inadequate, and they would pay for it because they're the entity with their local school board fund, local property tax fund, that have issued these devices. And it's just to make sure that children, that frankly daddy's not watching porn, or the kid, on these devices that are issued, that frankly are far more dangerous than a book that would be issued to a child.
Okay, you heard the explanation. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move.
We have a move and second. It be approved. Is there any opposition? Okay, it's approved. Chair Lady Dempsey, you had a request.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the first page for H.R. 1360, this is a House study committee to help us look ahead as policy would be formed over the 2 years that we're all looking forward to. This would deal with alternatives to opioids for pain management. There are some really good drugs out there today. There's some other ways to deal with it besides drugs, and it also would be, I think, a robust conversation for us to look at the challenges that come forward with addiction through prescriptions quite accidentally. Doctors are doing a great deal, a good bit of work on that to not have it happen, but I think that we could really have a good conversation about it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, you've heard all this. We're going to set a rules supplemental calendar for tomorrow. We've already set a calendar. This will be a supplemental calendar to tomorrow. Senate Bill 112.
Move.
Have a move and seconded. Is there any opposition? Okay, it's on for Thursday on supplemental. And recognize the Vice Chair for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move pursuant to Rule 33.3 that we limit debate to 1 hour, time to be divided at the discretion of the chair.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there objection? There is objection. All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, like sign. It passes. Okay, got a little bit of housekeeping to do here. We want to recommit a couple of bills. Senate Bill 322, we want to recommit that back to the Retirement Committee. Is there a move? Have a move to send that back to retirement. Any opposition? It's back in retirement. Senate Bill 502 to send back to Regulated Industries. Have a move and second. Any opposition? It's back to Regulated Beverages. Regulated Industry, excuse me. Sort of like the same thing. Okay, here we go. All right, that takes care of that today, and we'll probably be talking to you a little bit later on. Thank you very much.